I have thousands of meetings, literally.
And at the end of a 45-minute meeting, I've helped sick kids at the Starlights Children's Hospital, which is my chosen charity.
When you're first meeting someone, you're trying to build a connection. And with Meetings for Good, you just find the connections automatically there.
And when I actually think about what Meet Magic does and the opportunity to spend some time supporting the community of our vendors, but also being able to give back.
And when the opportunity presented itself to join Meet Magic, I jumped at it.
But these ones are different, and the reason they're different is because the vendor wants to meet with you and they're willing to put their money where their mouth is.
All of those meetings blur into one, but Meeting for Good is memorable.
It absolutely makes sense to do this, and I definitely recommend peers to engage with Meet Magic.
Yes, indeed. I would also recommend peers to engage with Meet Magic. Good morning, everyone. I'm Carl, as you know, the founder of Meet Magic, which is a purpose-driven platform that lets decision makers pay it forward by networking with some of the world's best technology companies. I think everyone knows that in today's world, solving real challenges requires leveraging the right technology. And I think today execs and decision makers are craving a little bit of purpose and a little bit of trust. They don't really necessarily want pushy sales tactics or spammy emails. So that's pretty much why we created Meet Magic. So I'm the chief meeting officer apparently, but what we've done is basically given decision makers the ability to meet the vendors, and they can find each other and share the latest in tech. But the good thing is they get to raise money for charity. So it's all about really control, it's about relevance, but it's about making a real impact along the way. And for those that don't know, of course, I'm from Nottingham, which is where Robin Hood comes from. And if you don't know who Robin Hood is, go and have a look. And also Sir William Booth, actually, the founder of the Salvation Army. So we kind of always know how to help and what to do with other people's money. Well, so today, this is obviously the Magic Room podcast, and this is where we showcase purpose-driven leaders and change makers. And I guess everyone's got a story, and this is really my way to share theirs. So in each episode, we try and dive a little bit into what inspired them growing up, who their mentors were, and what their vision for the future is, and pretty much how they give back now. Today, I'm very lucky because I've got not one, but two leaders. One who you might know, who's in that video just now, Paul Keane, who's been around Meet Magic for so long, and is probably one of the reasons why we've kicked off to where we are today, from all of his support from a few years ago. I think currently the CTO of Tyro Payments, and Manoj Agarwal, I think I pronounced that right, who was actually the former head of engineering at Nutanix, the SVP of engineering at Nutanix, but is now the co-founder of a client called DevRev. And you're going to get to hear how they're changing the game for, I think, support, product, and growth teams. So it is my absolute pleasure to introduce them both to the morning. Good morning, boys.
Good morning.
How was that for introduction? Was that a bit like scripted?
It felt so professional, and I feel honoured to be part of the podcast.
Well, it's 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning here, so thank you both for joining. Manoj, obviously it's a little bit later where you are in the afternoon on Sunday.
It's 3 p.m. in sunny California. You can see. I'm just thinking, when I'm looking at you, both of you wearing the jacket, I can tell you the temperature is around 80 degree Fahrenheit. Love it. In fact, in California, we complain about temperature when it goes above 80 and when it dips below 60 also. Both ways we complain.
We can put them on mute at any point.
Yeah, well, it's been very cold here, actually. Yesterday, I did something. So last year, I was in winter. I was in Europe, in the south of France, and I just had to go in the sea because the sea was really cold. And I did the same thing here yesterday. I went into the sea, and it was remarkably warm. It was only cold outside. Inside was actually quite okay. So I don't know, maybe give me a little bit of a boost in my energy levels. But thanks for joining. Maybe Paul, we've been around each other for a few years now. Maybe you can kickstart us off and just tell us a little bit about who you are and where you come from. And I'll just start with this because it would have been, I think you were I think at Airtasker.
Airtasker.
it might have been Airtasker or Qantas as CTO when you called me and said, come and have a chat. Let's talk about raising some money for the Starlight Children's Foundation. Was that Airtasker or was that Qantas?
It was Qantas.
Wow, that was a few years ago. And Manoj, just so you know, Paul called me in and said, look, I'm doing some stuff with some sick kids. Come and help me raise some money. And we formed an agreement with Starlight, and we've since gone on to give them $1 million through these meetings, which is kind of crazy. That all started with Paul. So maybe you can kickstart Paul as tell us a little bit about who you are and where you've come from.
Yeah, sure. So, Paul, I'm the CTO at Tyro Payments, which is a large payment company in Australia. Before that, I've worked at various companies, as Carl said. I've worked at very large companies like Qantas, and I've worked in startups like an Airtasker. For Manoj, Airtasker is like a TaskRabbit, where you go and basically for any job you would like to do, and people bid on those jobs and get those done. It's very popular in Australia. So done various CTO roles across the group. And then obviously, you said, Carl, we also try to give back as well. We're part of the tech community and also part of the greater community as well.
It's kind
Pretty
of
awesome. Great story.
Yeah. And Manoj, you started, I mean, everyone knows Nutanix. I mean, if you don't know who Nutanix are in the tech world, you've not been in the tech world. Tell us about your background. You were SVP there?
Yeah, I mean, the previous company, Nutanix, was founded 2009, 2016. We went public, was the biggest tech IPO of that year. And in 2020, when Dheeraj Pandey, who was the founder and CEO of the company, and I was from the product and engineering side, we both decided to start DevRev. The company was already close to $1.6 billion in software revenue at that point. We're selling our product into 200 different countries. We had 60 different offices worldwide, 9 different R&D sites, 2,200 developers at that point. There was quite a bit of learning, but there are some of the things that we are super proud of, part of building Nutanix, and many of those things that we are applying right now in the process of DevRev, building of DevRev, and so on. I've been in the United States for 25 or so years now in the Bay, and always been in the Bay Area, sunny California.
Crazy. It's crazy. The atmosphere up there, I've heard the energy is picking up like a lot. There's a few people from who I know from here, very successful people who used to work with Meta or Facebook back in the day. They relocated here, but now they're going back to the valley because it's buzzing again, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, what has happened during the COVID time, particularly, a lot of people thought that, okay, we can just go out and just build it from wherever that I want. And suddenly what you see now is people are coming back to the valley because like the technology and I mean, a lot of innovation that is still, and the talent that is still here in the Bay Area. The best of the best schools are also still here. The funding also is happening here. So as you start to see more and more innovation on the AI side, particularly, this is the place to be.
Yeah, totally. It's definitely some activity up there. I don't know if you listen to the All In podcast, but you can certainly hear it all through there. So Paul, let's go back to this question here, because I mean you've been in tech for a long time. I've done a few of these podcasts now with a few tech leaders, and the answers to this question really surprises me sometimes about what inspired them growing up, or what actually caused them to get into tech. There's been a few instances where at least 5 or 6 CTOs have said to me that they watched Star Trek and it got them into tech. What was your biggest inspiration growing up?
I think I went an unusual path. I mean, I don't have quite the auspicious story that you do have, Carl. But, I mean, I'm a high school dropout, right? So I'm very rare. So most CTOs I meet have this. They're the top of the class, and they've always done very well. And so I dropped out of school, and I knew how to program, and so I went, well, what do I want to do? And this was back in '95, I think it was, and I went, well, I can program this internet thing's really looks like it's going to be quite a good idea. And we started building e-commerce sites. And so that's what I did. And I met people along the way. And I think it's interesting when you're growing up, like you don't know who you are, and you become a sponge, right? And it doesn't matter who you get your inspiration from. It's, you'd watch a movie and go, I want to be like that. I want those attributes. Or you have your first boss, and that's probably you think, oh my god, that's all those attributes you want to pick up there. Probably my biggest inspiration though was my first flatmate was my. So I grew up in Southampton, the UK, and I moved out. I was working, and then I moved out with another guy who's about 10 years older than I was, and he was incredible. He used to be an ex-bodybuilder. He used to be a Chippendale, and then he turned into a grown-up business person. Now he's a CTO. But what I found when inspiring with him is I couldn't believe how much energy he would put into everything every single day. And I was a flatmate for him for 3 months, and then I found out, I just saw this brochure on the office desk, and I went, "What's that? That's you." And he was in the Rocky Horror Picture Show in the West End. I was like, if that happened to me, that would be one of the first ways I'd introduce myself. But he was just one of those people that every single night he would do something to push himself. And ever since then, that's been my inspiration. I've always tried to get around people who are constantly trying to move themselves forward. And I find that such an energizing thing. And that was the attribute I wanted to bring. And that's what's helped me throughout the rest of my career.
That's beautiful. I listened to Rory Sutherland, our chief evangelist, and he said one of the things you've got to do to become successful is get famous. That's pretty much it. I mean, no matter what you're doing, if nobody knows who you are, no one's going to buy your product. And so, Manoj, what was your inspiration growing up? I mean, you've been in the US for 25 years. Where were you before that?
Yeah, I actually have a very different story. I was in India, and in India also, there's a state, Jharkhand, and I've come from a very, very small village. Growing up, like the first, let's say maybe 14, 15 years of my life that I spent in this small village. And this village, just to think about it, that there was, just growing up, there was no electricity, there was no access to clean water, there was no road, there was no hospital. In fact, if you get a heart attack, you're sure to die. There is there is nothing that you can do. And in this place, like really your inspiration, when you start to think about it, it's like very close people, which is like your parents, whatever that you're seeing, what they're doing, what they're teaching you every day. I mean, that's what inspires you the most. The teacher, whoever is there in that small place, what they teach you every day is what inspires you. So for me, my parents, I would say they were the biggest inspiration for me, because they both were high school dropout, just being in this village to meet their ends meet. So do whatever that it takes to earn, but then also help us at least get whatever education that we can get. And I mean, people like today, some of the culture principle and all that we talk about in our own company, being hungry, being humble, being honest with heart. And I feel that many of these things that just I learned as part of just being in that small village, being surrounded with people who will do nothing but just do things with honesty, with humble, with with heart. I would say anything that they do. And yeah, I mean, I was there until my 10th grade. I also got to learn a lot, I would say, through my parents, especially my dad, who started a business when I was in the 7th grade. And especially some community that in India that you'll see that the older son, typically they would do the business of whatever that the parents or the family that is doing. And when I say business, just think like it's a very, very small scale thing that we are talking about. But through 7th to 10th grade that I didn't go to school, I was doing business during the daytime, and the evening time that I was just learning myself, just through self-study. So that's like
so from the 7th to the 10th grade, you were doing business studies.
I was doing business with my dad. So
Wow.
And this is the time that I kind of understood also the value of customer, and acquiring customer is very, very difficult, but it's even more important to retain them. And yeah, back then I didn't know meanings of any of these things, but today I can go and apply those.
That is a beautiful story for anyone to learn, because I think we often think that we're going through tough times as kids, but they don't realize it's shaping who we've become when we're older. You know, I left school at 15, left home at 16, and some of the things that I watched and witnessed growing up, just extreme poverty. And my dad, for example, when it was a roof tiler. You talk about doing business with your dad. My dad took me as a teenager to carry tiles on a roof up a ladder, because he used to fix roofs for people, and he worked for himself doing that. And one day he got sort of half drunk, and we went to the supermarket, and he had a shopping trolley full of food, and he came out and gave it to a homeless person on the street. And my mum literally slapped him around the head and said, "What are you doing?" And he says, "Don't worry, that homeless person needs it more than us." And I didn't think anything of this until I'm a bit older, thinking how much that one thing has shaped who I've become, just giving everything away. It's just crazy. But that's a remarkable story that you've got there. So it's an inspiration to anybody to listen to the fact that you think you're going through a tough time now, but you don't realize how it's shaping you, and how those tough times actually build grit and determination, and help you even when times are really, really tough. For me, I often think that it can't get any worse than where I've come from, so I'm already ahead. So I think that's a beautiful story. So I mean, those inspirations, obviously, you mentioned before about how they've shaped who you've become today, and how your father taught you, or doing business with your father taught you about customer service. How is that playing out today? How does that, in real terms, in your business, how does that shape what happened today?
It's incredibly well. I mean, some of the other learnings which were like, okay, if you just tell the truth, always just the truth, then you don't have to remember anything. Can you imagine that when you talk to people, all you have to say is the truth? And sometimes even some truth that maybe you can't tell, but you can very easily say that, okay, sorry, I can't share this with you because of whatever confidentiality reason or whatever. But you don't have to lie. And this is something that actually I treasure it to this day, because I use that. I'm just going to tell you the truth. If you hear something from me, then you're hearing the truth. And then any person or from behind also you'll only hear the same thing. You ask me 20 times in different settings, you'll hear the same thing from me. That's something that I learned. Beyond like the customer is God is something that I learned very early on through my parents. The customer is God. And simply that meant was worship them. If they are coming and buying something from you, take care of them forever. Don't lose them.
It's a metric. I think I've bootstrapped Meet Magic. We've taken no funding at all, and it's one metric that I look at when people say to me, "What's your CAC and what's your LTV?" And I say, "I don't know, but we've got an 85% customer retention ratio, and they keep coming back and buying more." And that for me is my metric, because it's like if you keep giving value, your customers will keep coming back, and if you stop giving value, they won't. So it's exactly what you're saying is totally spot on for me. Paul, sorry.
Yeah, and when you look at, for example, Nutanix, something that we are super proud of is a metric that we used to always look at, which is Net Promoter Score, NPS. And NPS, that the score goes from -100 to +100. It's like a really, really difficult metric to really be on the positive side. And despite at the speed that every year that we were growing, the Nutanix, our net promoter consistently stayed above +90, and today it is as +92. Just remember that even some of the best companies that we worship, and their brand that we worship, and things that we promote their brand, like Apple, they are in the plus 70s. Amazon.com in the plus, and AWS plus 70s is what we're talking about. So to get to that plus 90 is no small feat. Of course, your product has to be good. But then also it comes down to when the customers, when they're down, how well that you take care of them. And this, if you do it consistently well, take care of them really well, then the business, like they are not going to go away anywhere. They actually want to come and invest more and more time and more money and whatever that means with you.
Paul, you would have seen this a lot in your background, especially with B2C and B2B companies where you've worked.
Focusing on the customer. I think it's, what if you can get 90 a score of 90 in NPS, you're doing very well. It was funny, I was talking to our CEO about it, and when he was at NAB, a big bank here, and he was talking to one of their partners and said, "Oh yeah, what's your NPS score?" So one of the partners asked what the NAB one was, and they went, "Oh, it's minus 20 or something." And they went, "Oh, I didn't even know it went into minuses." So it's easy to happen. I think all the best companies, that's the one attribute that has been common between every single customer, the ones which really are customer obsessed and you can feel it. So when things go wrong, when you're the customer and you can see they spend more time on retention than they do on the sale. That's the key. Quite often, seeing as a CTO, buying the software, and you were doing from your old role, there's so much effort given to the sales guy at the beginning, and then you get the contract, and then you never see that person ever again. And then you just go, "Oh yeah, I've now passed you on to the account manager, and I've bought into you as an individual as well as the company." And so having that customer obsession all the way through, so you can constantly feel loved, and they're checking in, making sure you are using the product, is critically important.
Yeah, I think there's if I look at the B2B SaaS market and the publicly listed SaaS companies that have there's a report that's just come out that shows their go-to-market spend versus the annual recurring revenue. And you look at these metrics, and one of those that you just mentioned there is right at the forefront of it. If you're not managing those metrics, you're in trouble. I think there's a lot to be said about looking after your existing customers and just bringing on new ones. You have to really look after your existing ones. I'm pretty proud of where we've gone with ours. It's been a journey, but you can't get there unless you're actually learning along the way as well, because you lose some customers along the way and you think, shit, I've made a mistake there, I'm not going to make that same mistake again, and so you fix it at that point. And I think if you've got a playbook, or a playbook to follow because somebody else has been there before, that's great. But if you're carving a brand new market and creating a new category, it's even harder because no one's been there before.
It's the second-hand referral is probably the biggest market that's underutilized. So there's a huge, I don't know what Silicon Valley is probably even better than Australia is. In Australia, all the CTOs all hang around together, and all the VP of engineering, they all hang around together. We all go to the same meetups. We go, there's a Slack working groups and all these things like that. And all the time we're going, "Oh, have you seen this?" Or this people go, "Oh, you should try this out." We're all sharing things. So yes, top of the funnel is fantastic. It's the hardest thing to do. The referrals is where the real market is, and that's where your NPS and your customer obsession makes the difference.
So I'm very excited about you and Manoj getting together, Paul, because Paul's one of the best CTOs in this country. And Manoj and DevRev have just become a client, and we're bringing Manoj and DevRev to the market here to help them connect with CTOs. So that's some good insights that you've just given us there. But Manoj, maybe it's a good idea for you to share with Paul the story of DevRev, because I think what you're doing with customer and product and growth is quite exciting. And the more I think about DevRev and what you're doing, the more I think about that every CTO needs to see it.
Yeah, see, in the process of building Nutanix, and in the process of also seeing all of the operational complexity that happens, the number of tools and systems that you have to use, how you have to go and stitch them together. Because in the end, if you just think about it, what does company even mean? And and you can see this. There are only two things that matters for the company or existence of the company: is the product that you have, and it's the customers that you serve. There's nothing else. And then you have people inside the company. What do? They're all doing work, working for the product and working for the customers. And today, what we do is, in fact, and we all see this, except that we don't realize that how difficult it is to do things, which is this work that we are talking about in the context of the product and the customers, that we go and put this into 20 different tools and systems today. And to really go and even find out how much of the work that I'm doing for the product, which are all the customers who are using this product, what does the engagement look like, how much complaint that are coming, are they even satisfied with this part of the product that I have actually shipped, how much revenue coming out, and so on. It's very, very hard to really find that. And when you go and look at the customer side, you find the same problem, which is, okay, do I even know this customer? Which all product that they are using? What does the engagement look like? How much revenue they are bringing? How much issues that they are facing with the product? What kind of features that they are asking to run their business, and so on. And for each one of them, there are tools. There are different tools, different systems. There are different people who are looking at it. So you can start to see that there is a product 360 view. There is a customer 360 view. But then you look at also people inside the company who are doing the work for the product and customers. Is there a 360 view that also looks for them? And this is something that it's not that in the absence of tools or systems that we don't do it. We just try to figure it out somehow with the 20 different tools and systems today. And for us, it was at the end of the day that we have to take care of the customers, and we have to build what in the end that the customer, it satisfies the need of the customers. How do you really bring these two things together in the system along with the work in a common, call it the knowledge graph, and from where that you can derive all of these, not just the insights, but also the way that the people go and work today. Could they really come and do the work here? So for example, if I'm coming from customer support side, customer support doesn't just end with customer conversation or just going and creating a ticket in the system. Until I resolve that problem, and problem could be just give me some answer because I'm stuck somewhere, to, okay, actually I have a problem, there's a bug in the system, that you have to go and work with the people inside engineering, product people and engineering, or I need a new feature that also has to get on the roadmap. And when you go and execute on that also I need to get transparently the information so that I know how to plan my business also. So a lot of systems today just do the L1, L2, but they don't level 1 support and level 2 support, not necessarily go to the level 3 and level 4 where it becomes more technical. Product manager needs to get involved. The engineering team will have to get involved and then closing the loop all the way from L4 to L3 to L2 to L1, all the way back to the customers. How do you really do that? It's very, very hard. What to prioritize, what not to prioritize, very, very hard problem. Often we require so many meetings, and also you see that the biggest title and the loudest voice, that they get to make the decisions in those rooms. And you often wonder, like, if that person didn't show up, do you make the same decisions? And often not. And you say that it's the same company, same customers, same product, same mission, same vision, everything, but you're not making the same decision. How is that fair? It makes no sense. It drives me nut when I think about it. And I did drive me nut in the previous company. And the thing was, the reason that I actually came, or what conclusion that I drew based on that experience, was it's not that those people with the biggest title or the loudest voice, they got to make the decision. It was because they had different information than the people in the room, other people in the room. And it's the information symmetry that was missing. If somehow you bring that information symmetry across people who need to make the decisions, more than often they'll make the same decisions. And so that was the birth of DevRev. DevRev has two words there, clearly, Dev and Rev.
Yeah.
Dev is for development, which is proxy for product. Rev is for revenue, which is proxy for customers. How do you really bring these two persona into the same systems?
Paul, what would you have done in these situations where you've got multiple systems not talking to each other and giving you different outcomes? How do you make a decision when you've got the loudest voice or the biggest title in the room, or what would you normally do?
I do like being the loudest voice in the biggest in the room. I love the asymmetry thing. I've talked about this a lot. There's an asymmetrical thing around communication with asymmetry that managers always look really smart, and the business is designed to make this look really smart, because what we're doing is we've got all these people feeding up from the bottom up, feeding the leaders, feeding the managers, and I'm getting all this information constantly. I've got 8 hours of meetings of people giving me information. So when I make a decision, it's not that I'm particularly insightful or a genius, it's just because I have access to more across the group, and so it makes the leaders actually look much better than they are, and I'm very grateful for that. But as you're right, Manoj, it's not the right. You need to be in every decision, and therefore, and it's not the best place to be. So having the ability to to eliminate that asymmetrical view and actually know what's really going on is really important. I've looked at DevRev because you've hired the legend that is Richard Marr. In our space, and so if Richard gives you a call, you go, that's going to be an interesting meeting, so you take it. I think it does solve a really big problem that we've got. We love Atlassian to death, but it doesn't really give you that great portfolio view of what's going on. There's a disconnect between the product and what is going on in the engineering, and we've all been trying to solve that, and no one's really solved that. I've thought what was really interesting is the way DevRev can roll up and roll down across the whole product life cycle. I think it was really interesting viewpoint, and I do like even the way you can get to the point of you can look at around productivity without being too invasive. So I've used other tools where we've all been trying to use to say, how efficient are our developers actually being, but it looks too much like a big brother approach. And I thought the way DevRev's gone at that, which is, it's more about actually how are we focusing, are we working on the right things and focusing around that particular area? It feels much more like it's a cohesive, we're all in this together at a team level rather than a individual, are we performance managing our team?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I see is often when we think about the productivity, Paul, we think that in fact, the way that a lot of people think that if I do more, that is, I'm more productive. So doing more is not more productive in the same time. And the thing that at least we were trying to figure out was, let's say 100 unit of work that I'm doing. If 30 unit of that work has zero impact to the business or customers in any way, could I really go and find out that and put it to the better use, to the impact, or do nothing? In fact, go and spend more time with the family. Probably is better time spent there. So to us, it was all about the productivity was, could we really direct our time to more useful thing in life, or in the context of the company, doing more useful thing which has the direct impact to the business or helping the customers, and something that deeply committed at DevRev to do that.
Yeah, it's got that vibe about it. When I started looking at DevRev, I never heard of them until Richard came and spoke to me, and then we had a chat with Ben, who's been amazing in Thailand, and then I met with KK over the weekend. What was the single most challenging part of building DevRev, Manoj, and how did you overcome it?
So we started DevRev during the height of COVID. This is we are talking about end of 2020. And you can imagine that the entire world was talking about everything remote and never will come back from remote. The world will look like that. And we were trying to figure out how to build being remote but also knowing that when we come back from remote, let's say out of COVID, that people will also come back. And who are the people, like when you are going and rolling out the offer also? How do you really say that, okay, no, actually we will have an office, let's say these are the cities that we're picking up, and that offer letter clearly states that yes, until that we don't have an office, you're still assigned to this office, but when we have the office, you're going to move to that city. And not saying that you have to be coming to the office every day, but at least we know that you have access to the office and you'll be coming to the office when there is a need. I would say that that was one thing. Obviously, we had to figure it out during the COVID time, and it felt good. The second thing was how to really, during the COVID time, particularly as you can see, the money, the interest rate was very, very low. And so there was supply of money was there for a lot of companies, a lot of startups that were coming out during that period. So how you can be competitive when other people are saying that, okay, I can hire you anywhere in the world, I can pay you for the most expensive place, and you never have to come to the work to compete with them, knowing that, okay, I'm building the company for the long run, not for this short term. So how do I really go and identify those people, those best of the best people, to come and work with us for a long period of time, including people who are going to come from the college, this will be their first job, that 6 job offers that they're getting, that they pick DevRev. I would say that that was definitely one of the some of the challenges that we faced. But I'm glad to also note that we did successfully overcome that.
You sound very much like us, Manoj. I mean, when Paul spoke to me in 2019, 2018, 19, it would have been we weren't even anything. And then at the end of 2019, we were going through droughts and bushfires, and there was the world was ending in Australia because it was the sky was red, and you get on the train and you travel across the train, and it was just like what's going on. And then, of course, COVID hit in 2020. And so we've gone from bushfires, droughts, and craziness in the country to complete lockdown. And it was 2020 when really Meet Magic kicked off, because nobody could go to conferences anymore. They couldn't go to events. They couldn't go to the round tables. And so people like Richard were knocking on the door, buying meetings from us so they can continue to do business. So we, very much like you, consider ourselves a COVID native startup. And one of the things that I think is really gone in our favor is the fact that we started in a very, very difficult, tough period. And we learned how to make money from a customer and give value to the customer with, to make sure that they keep coming back. And so we learned to do that with no money. We learned to do that bootstrapping, and so when times become good, it becomes easier. And so when times like right now, how everyone's struggling, it's our bread and butter. We feel like this is where we thrive. It's not uncommon for us to know what struggle is. And your points before about how you started the company, it's all relevant. I think you learn along the way. But I think the COVID native startup stuff is really interesting. Paul, I'm interested in how you guys at DevRev think about competition in this space, because I think when Tyro during COVID, people weren't spending money, were they? They couldn't go out. How did Tyro think about competition back then, and what sort of strategies did they have? Do you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think people focus too much on competition. It's most companies die of homicide, of suicide rather than homicide, right? It's very rarely another competitor kills them. There's generally enough space in there. What generally kills companies or stops them from being successful is they're not really focusing on those hygiene factors. So you talked about before, get the customer service right, make sure that the support is there. We all know which are the key parts of a product. We've all these features, but there's probably 80% of it where everyone actually uses. Making sure those are really reliable and super tight and work every single time. If you get those hygiene factors right, then you can work on where your unfair advantages are. So what Tyro does is it goes, well, where are we very strong? And where do we need to make sure we're very reliable? So we're we're a tech company, a fintech. We deploy to production 45 times a day, but we have, I think, our published downtime, transaction downtime last year was 4 minutes for the entire year. So you're getting those. Customers won't buy from us because we're reliable. You don't thank your car for starting its 200th time in a row. But if it does fail, then you'll move on. So we make sure the hygiene is really important. And then we go, where's those little value adds that, those little features that make their lives easier if you're a small business, or if you're at a table and you want to take a payment, does the split bill work really, really nicely? So it was a smooth experience at the end of the night. They're the things you need to focus on.
I love that. That hygiene factor. I think it's really critical. Manoj, how have you guys focused on that? I mean, I don't know who DevRev competitors are. I would imagine the status quo is your competitor.
I mean, if you start to worry about the competition, then you'll not be able to go and build something of really great value. And especially if you are looking at building something which is multi-decade kind of company. And so that's like on one hand, internally, that you need to make sure that you get people right. And when I say people right, there's people who come and work, even the people who come and invest in the company, that they're all thinking about staying power. They're all thinking about long-term view of the company. Otherwise, that becomes like, okay, you're living quarter to quarter, as opposed to be thinking about like, okay, multi-year, multi-decade kind of journey. So for example, for us, first 2 years of the company, that kind of ideas that we were working on, we knew that we will have to go and spend and building this platform, getting that platform right. Be it like building that knowledge graph, let's say the entire object model, that getting it right to connect to the product and customers, even the view about what does product mean and what does customer mean, to build the search semantic as well as syntactic, right, to workflow engine, right, the data warehousing and analytics on top of that, right, and so on. Super important before we start to look at, okay, how people are going to go and use this product. And for us, the competition, only thing was we wanted to make sure was, can I connect with my competitive tools in a way that everything that is happening on the current systems that people use, can it migrate without requiring a single professional dollar, services dollar, onto this platform, so that they actually it's a two-way sync with which the information seamlessly flow into DevRev. And as you start to move people in this platform, you can coexist for a while before you can decide to cut it off completely. So for us to understand the competition, what exactly they do, and not just competition, it's the way that the people use the current system and tools, that was important. And that's something that we also invested heavily to build the airdrop technology, which does this two-way sync with the existing systems. Like we beat Jira Atlassian, be it Zendesk, be it Salesforce, Service Cloud, be it HubSpot, and so many other tools and systems.
I love the multi-decade analogy. I think that's, when I think about what we're doing, 10-year overnight success is a common thing to hear in the startup world. Nothing happens in the first 5 or 6 years. You got to be very lucky to go and become a company that pops off in the first 5 years. I think the multi-decade strategy is really crucial, I think, today. And often I think about who our customers will be in 10, 15 years time, and it'll be the Gen Zs of the world, the Gen Alphas of the world, and how are they going to be thinking about, what are they going to be, tools are they going to be looking for? And that's really, I think, where you play to where the puck is, not where the puck's going, rather than where the puck is, if in a hockey kind of term. But it's really interesting. It's great feedback, I think, for anyone to listen to this and hear that from you. What advice would you, Paul, I'll give this one to you. What advice would you give your younger self, or to a new CTO that's starting out?
To my younger self, I'll go, just relax. I overthink everything, and I think you talked about this before. things are never, when you go through tough times, or those, I think the NVIDIA CEO says, I hope you struggle, because that's when you learn, and things are never as bad as you think. And I promise you, every single person who's been through something tough always go, you know what, that was the making of me. I'm glad I went through it. It was horrible at the time, but glad I went through it. And if things are going well, enjoy it. I would overthink that too, and don't get carried away with your ego, and just have fun. So that would be my key to my younger self. To any entrepreneur, worry about cash. Cash flow. You can't, if you're thinking about cash, then you're not thinking about the customer. So making sure your cash flow is well managed is my other advice.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. I've often thought about delivering value, because the cash will come from the value. And so if you don't deliver value, you won't get any cash. And so you've got to make sure, almost, if you can deliver 10% more value, 10% quicker, then you're in a good position to get a 10% repeat order faster. So I've often thought about what value can we keep giving. Like, for example, with Manoj and Richard, what extra value can we give over and above getting them in front of the right Paul Keys to talk to, because you can go and have, 50 conversations. And I often say this to when a new client comes on board, and they ask me how successful Meet Magic is. I said, well, look, if you've had 20 dates on Tinder and haven't got lucky, it's not the app's fault, is it? Let's be fair. So Meet Magic is the same. It's the same thing. If you've had 20 dates with CTOs and you haven't got lucky, well, it's not the app's fault. And so we're trying to make sure that we add value over and above just a connection. So Manoj, what advice would you give to your younger self, or to an entrepreneur starting out? Because it is a tough journey. It's not easy.
Yeah, I would say first for the younger self, and a lot of time people worry too much about building a resume versus building a career. And like building a resume that you're always then chasing something, as opposed to when you're building a career, which is about simple stuff, and simple stuff, just doing that right. So for me, I would say any work that you do, doesn't matter how boring it is, how interesting it is, how challenging it is, you ask just these two questions, which is it good for the company? Is it good for the customer? And if the answer you get yes for even one, you should just go and do it. Don't question. Because like if you continuously, consistently do it for a long period of time, you're building your career, you'll never have to go and build a resume. Because the people who are surrounded or with whom that you're working with, they're all noticing this, because you are the most non-political person in that room. Doesn't matter who you talk to. That's one thing that I'll say. And to the new entrepreneurs, I would say don't take shortcuts. A lot of time it is okay to go slow, because then you can go fast later on. Don't optimize just for getting some quick wins, because often doesn't work.
Yeah, it's very valuable points. I think, optimizing for metrics for me is kind of crazy right now. It's like, don't do it. It's just go slow and get the basics right, I think is critical. But great advice from everybody. Okay, sort of coming up to the sort of 50-minute mark. I just want to, Paul, you've been a huge supporter of ours over the years. Not only just as an executive taking meetings, but for guidance for me. I know how you give back, but why don't you tell people how you give back today? Because you're involved in a lot of things that are not just about personal, not just about yourself growth, but you're helping a lot of kids out.
Yeah, I think it's important to give back. I think America does that actually better than Australians. You got to push to give back. A lot of people don't do it. But I think that there's the community thing. So I've been on the Starlight Children's Foundation board for 7 years, and that's been a very rewarding experience for it. And get great people like Carl and who are trying to make a difference. And then I think that you try and give back to your business community as well. So I'm very active in the tech meetups and things like that. The one thing I think all execs can do is, I remember when I was the lonely programmer, and I was just amazed that some people would take the time, some business leaders would sit down and have a coffee with me. And it was a 20-minute, 30-minute meeting, and it made an enormous impact to me. I remember every word they would say for years. You know, for them, it was just a coffee meeting for half an hour. And I think it's just finding those little moments where you go, like, what will make a big difference to their lives, whether it is, you know, spending a lot of time working on charity, or whether it just is simply having a cup of coffee with someone and just spending some time and getting to listen to them, is a fantastic, rewarding experience.
That's beautiful. It definitely is. I often call on people to go and have a coffee and sit down just to pick their brain and understand from their point of view how I can improve something. Manoj, one of the reasons, you probably don't know this, one of the reasons I got into giving back and doing the charity stuff and building a business around that was because of a charity called the Hunger Project. And they basically, it was 2006, they brought 2 Indian ladies into this conference that I was in, and these 2 Indian ladies spoke about the Hunger Project and how they educated them and inspired them to end their own poverty. And so the Hunger Project had this way of, so the subjugation of women in India was the cause of poverty, and the idea was around empowering women in their own homes and then their own villages and their own communities to go and end their own poverty. And it was an amazing story that really inspired me to go and do something. And I then went off and set up a credit card with the ANZ Bank. So every time the credit card would be used, a percentage of the funds would go to the Hunger Project. And of course, you know, you can spend money. And so that was one of the things that I did. But that was part of the reason why I was so inspired to get back in and give back to community. What are you doing today? I mean, it's obviously you've got a big community around you. How do you give back today?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I'll just go back to my childhood. I'm just trying to do whatever that I can in a little way, big way. First, like even this village still doesn't really have a hospital. Yeah, it is now connected, definitely, but there is no air service that you can think of. You still have to go, let's say, 7 hours of train ride to a place from where maybe you can get some service, like really good service. In terms of the good hospital and so on. So I'm definitely, so one is at the lowest level, I would say, making sure the education, particularly in this small place, that whatever that I can do for mostly underprivileged, underserved community. And the second is just trying to figure out, is there a way that I also recognize that hospitals, even if you open there, the best of the best doctors, they're not going to go and work there because the facility for their kids and their education is just not there. So they will not go and shift there. So is there a way that a faster way for them, people, when they need help, that they can get to a place within, let's say, an hour, maybe a helipad with some arrangement that you could go and do that. So things like those that I worry and I'm trying to do. And the second part of this is like money is one aspect, but the other one is that time, which is like the most precious. How much time could I really go and give? So whether it is to the, let's say and this is where that's not, they're underprivileged, it's more they're privileged, but any advice that they can get, the time that they can get from you, that you can advise them to become better human being or do something really, really remarkable. Something that also, like mostly local teaching.
Teach a person to fish or feed for themselves, right? It's absolutely one of the things that the Hunger Project do, and this may be something you can take to the village in India. One of the things that they did in Malawi to try and the end of poverty is almost in sight in Malawi. They started to build these what they call epicenters, and I think back then it cost $500,000 to build an epicenter. It might be a bit more today, but the epicenter was basically this square sort of box inside the village, but inside it had a birthing suite, it had a sort of microfinancing bank, so you could take a loan out for $50. They had an education facility in there, so they could train the locals on how to raise 2 cattle and breed those 2 cattle and then sell the offspring, so you can pay back your loans. And so there's this whole ability to help the villagers help themselves become a lot more sustainable and to end poverty. And that really worked really, really well. I'm wondering if if something similar could be done for a hospital in the village, because you don't need to build a full-blown hospital. You could have the basic facility in an epicenter kind of model that would give, it might be $1 million to build that, but it would give immediate access to support when needed, rather than traveling 6 hours on a coach to go and get there. So that might be something worth looking at. Maybe Meet Magic can help you fund that, because we'd love to go and, there's where we choose to give our money is up to us. It's not something we're bound to. If we like an idea over there, we'll go and give it over there. Like for example, in the UK, we're looking at helping make society much more safer through supporting the Raphael Rowe Foundation, which is something to help people stop reoffending and not going back to prison. So whatever works in each country is something we'd love to look at with you.
Yeah, and in fact, I do get a lot of help this way, just through the connections. People would like to come and help, and Carl really appreciate it. In fact, you also offering it. Where it gets stuck the most is the kind of people who are required at the ground level to be able to go and do that work, as well as government support, because making sure that it's not something that they also support it. So absolutely a work in progress, and we'll definitely come and ask for help.
It's a beautiful work. It's a beautiful work in progress. And my advice to my former self is don't wait, just do it now, because you've only got on average 900 months in your lifetime. So that's 900 months. That's an average of 80 years. And I've already had 680 of them. There's not that many left. So what are you waiting for? The time is never going to be right. If you're thinking about it, just do it, because I think somebody said it was 4,000 weeks that you've got in your life. It's not a lot. Not a lot. And so just
great perspective.
Yeah. So 640 or 680 I've had, 54. So there's not that many left if you think about it. There's a lot of people dying at 60, 70, 80. If you can get to 80, you've done really, really well. If you get to 90, yes. But 80 is an average. That's 900 months. That is not a lot of time. Jeds, I just want to say thank you for giving me a great start to the week. It's Monday morning here. Manoj, thank you for taking your Sunday afternoon and giving us some time. And thank you for your trust and support with Meet Magic, with DevRev. I want to make sure that Ben and the team and Richard and the team are really successful with this. I know with the likes of Paul helping us out, spreading the word, it can only be successful because Paul's really, really well connected. So Paul, bless you for joining us and having a chat.
Thanks for that.
Thank you so much, Paul and Carl. Really appreciate it, and great conversation. Thank you.
We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for your support.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye.